Started this review show because of my love for television, and for the longest time I tried to think back as to what actually started that love. What was the first show I ever looked forward to watching all the time? For the longest time, I thought it had been the 1980s cartoon adaptation of the Berenstain Bears books, because that was the first series that I had to set an alarm for to make absolutely certain I was up for it. Or maybe it was the animated Garfield specials that were must-watch whenever came the occasion that they aired in primetime. But no, there was one show that came before all that. One that, as I see it now, may have ingrained in me my ultimate love for the weird, the nonsensical, and the insane. And it's time to tackle that show right here and now. It's been a long time coming, but that time is finally upon us. For the 150th episode of TV Trash, get your tokens and joysticks ready, cause we're going back to the Supercade!
Well, Saturday Supercade, gather round.
Oh, Saturday Supercade, how could I have forgotten about you? You were it for me on Saturday mornings in the early 80s, even if I didn't actually play the video games you were based on. You can look back at every single absolutely nuts cartoon adapted from video games in TV history, creating storylines that seem to have nothing to do with the games they were based on. This was the one that set the standard. 1 year after Hanna-Barbera created an animated version of Pac-Man, their old buddies at Ruby Spears decided they could go much crazier and create a series adapting multiple video games all in one. The result was Saturday Supercade, which premiered on CBS in the fall of 1983. Yeah, because that was a great year for video games, right? So just what was Saturday Supercade all about? Well, what the frack wasn't it about? Let's get started by looking at the first series of cartoon shorts, Frogger!
Frogger?
Oh, hi, Decker Shadow!
You mean that video game that's all about getting a frog across the highway without becoming roadkill? How do you make a cartoon about that?
You make the frog an investigative journalist who thwarts criminals and solves mysteries.
This series is going to make us drink, isn't it?
When you gotta have a story.
Yes, the first set of shorts was based on the 1981 Konami video game where the object was simply to get a frog home by crossing busy streets and dangerous rivers. In the cartoon scenario, Frogger is the top reporter for the Swamp Gazette, where he's accompanied by his female cub reporter Fanny and his cowardly photographer Shell Shock. Basically, this cartoon is what would happen if you took the crew from the Daily Planet, made them swamp creatures, and put them in Scooby-Doo scenarios. All I'm gonna say is this show came out 3 years before the war on drugs started, and let you make your own conclusions. And this is apparently a reporter that doesn't follow the rule of never becoming a part of the story, as they always do the mystery solving themselves, with Frogger leading the way, usually with the help of his insanely long tongue and his ability to get flattened, only to have Shelly, well...
Hey, not so much! Forgive me, Froggy, honey, but without the swamp buggy, this is the only way to catch this thief.
Yeah, these guys abuse Frogger's ability almost as much as Fangface's friends do. And no, this wasn't the only one of the cartoons to use the character death as a bit. The scenarios are really kooky, as sometimes they're dealing with cases happening in their town of Foggy Bottom, but ultimately they almost always end up having to go into the human world, where the locals seem to handle the presence of talking frogs pretty well.
Yeah, undercover reporters.
Frogs? And a turtle? You look more like escapees from the biology department.
Frogs? Is this Halloween? Yes, sir. I mean, no, it's not Halloween. We're reporters from the Swamp Gazette.
Well, I turned the TV on and see a frog hosting a variety show, so yeah, I can believe this.
We caught the thief, and you got your story.
Yeah, but I'm really disappointed in you guys, letting yourselves get robbed in the first place. Why, nothing ever gets past me.
Then you gotta be my
Almost
You gotta
nothing.
be my and I wanna be with you.
Frogger was admittedly one of the less popular of the shorts, as we'll see later, but the next series on this show is maybe the most well-known of them all.
Donkey Kong.
Oh yes, welcome to the adaptation of the game that debuted Nintendo's most famous character, even if he wasn't in the title of this one. When you do the research, the story of Donkey Kong is actually kind of dark. The character you play, then just known as Jumpman, was actually an abusive trainer of the title character and drove the ape to insanity. So yeah, the mission where you have to save the girl from his capture? Kind of your fault. Naturally, that wouldn't fly for a kid's cartoon, so in these shorts, Donkey Kong is an escaped circus ape who is running across the country with his trainers Mario and Pauline trying to capture him.
Hey, Melonhead, come on down from there. Gotcha.
I have to admit, one thing I like about this is how Donkey Kong is not a villain. He's nothing more than a kid in an ape's body, wanting to have fun wherever he goes, never wanting to actually hurt anyone. But Mario and Pauline aren't villains either. You can tell that they do actually care for DK, and are only wanting to take him back to where he'll be safe.
That ape is a menace.
Donkey Kong wouldn't hurt a fly.
The stories always revolve around DK finding himself in some situation where he usually makes a new friend somewhere to discover that said friend is in trouble from a third-party set of villains and has to thwart them himself, often with Mario and Pauline needing to aid him before he eludes their grasp once again and the chase resumes. There was supposedly a crossover in place where Donkey Kong helped find the one-armed man, but for some reason never got past the Moral Guardians.
You caught him once. You can catch him again.
That's easier said than done when you're dealing with Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong admittedly had one of the most repetitive storylines of the whole series, but not the most out there. That one might be Q*bert.
Q*bert?
Oh, hi, long-haired creepy guy.
You mean that game that's nothing but some snout-nosed thing jumping up and down on a pyramid? What'd they do? Put him in some weird 1950s style alternate universe?
You're smart!
Take a cue from the cube. Hey, it's Q*bert.
Yes, how do you take a game that's solely about jumping up and down on a pyramid of cubes while avoiding snakes and other beasts? Well, similar to Frogger, you give the character a completely original supporting cast along with one for the main antagonist and put them in some entirely made-up setting. In this case, a Happy Days ripoff.
Hey, Q*bert, you're a cinch to win tomorrow's disc derby race with this snazzy disc you built.
I sure hope so. Q*bert thinks he can beat you in the race. Are you gonna let him make a monkey out of you?
Yeah, he's gonna make a monkey out of you.
I'll demolish that nozzle-nosed numbskull!
So yeah, in this world, the good guy wears the windbreaker and the bad guy the leather jacket. So this is where the censors for Happy Days ultimately went. Oh, and if you don't like cartoons where one of the running gags is making puns involving a word that associates with the characters in some way, yeah, you're gonna go for the crazy pills on this one.
I'm for sure the most totally cubulous rock group will be there.
You head home. I'll lead Coily on a wild Q chase and meet you later.
Another running joke is how anytime Q*bert gets hurt, he has to make a censored swear, just like he did in the games. So at least these writers did more research for their adaptation than Uwe Boll has ever done. But in this cartoon, he does have a way of fighting back in being able to shoot projectiles out of his snout. Not sure if he could do that in the games, but the only version I've played in the last 20 years was an NES port, and I never made it past level 3.
Those 10 tickets to Funland are all mine.
That'll teach you to play dirty.
I'll beat you clean or dirty. And the winner is Q*bert by a nose. Everyone, you're having a blast.
Especially Q*bert. He's got the best seat in the house.
Q*bert, you're my favorite.
So yes, a lot of these cartoons so far don't seem to have quite the action and adventure you might expect from a video game. For that, you had Pitfall. Yes, there was a cartoon based on the Activision adventure game that involved locating treasures across a deadly jungle. The cartoon setting might be the most realistic one of all the shorts, as it involves our main character, Pitfall Harry, traveling the world, searching for treasures, and finding himself naturally in perilous situations, accompanied by his niece Rhonda and his pet lion Quick Claw. But sadly, no, Pitfall Harry isn't voiced by Jack Black.
We had just left Bombay by train to deliver the magnificent Star of India ruby to the Calcutta Museum.
For what it's worth, Harry's supporting cast was not just the creations of the show writers to just be filler. From what I can gather, it was at the time that the cartoon debuted that game creator David Crane was designing the sequel, Pitfall 2 Lost Caverns, that debuted the following year, and it was this game that the characters of Rhonda and Quick Claw were introduced. And yes, Lost Caverns was the game that would be adapted into the Torch and Pitchfork lines over there. This was one that was the most difficult to find episodes of, so I didn't have a lot to go on for this review. It seems the setting involves Pitfall traveling the planet with Quick Claw and Rhonda. Yeah, that's great parenting if he's their legal guardian. Locating treasures and preventing them from falling into the hands of thieves. Oh, but Pitfall's completely different from the other treasure hunters because he gives all the treasures to museums. So yeah, he's basically made to an Indiana Jones ripoff here. Great, now I want someone to create a Pitfall Harry Lara Croft crossover. There is one group of recurring villains, apparently, in a trio of crocodiles. Yeah, obviously based on the crocs he had to jump over in the game. Here, they're a little less menacing.
Here, Crockies. Nice Crockies. Follow me. Just a little closer. Perfect.
Those might be the dumbest crocs on the planet.
Trust me, I can think of some worse ones.
Point taken.
Looks like we've got it all wrapped up, Uncle Pitfall. We have delivered the Star of India ruby to the museum, and the spider in its men to the Indian police.
Oh, the spider!
See, Quick Claw? It was only a little baby spider.
The final cartoon of the first season was Donkey Kong Jr., based on the pseudo-sequel to the original game, where Mario actually becomes the villain, and your mission is to save the imprisoned Big Ape. A storyline that I was surprised to discover later I was not alone in being put off about. The setup here is that Junior found out his dad ran off from the circus and finds this kid named Bones who agrees to help him hunt down Dad. The stories here are pretty much the same as the other cartoon, just involve Junior and Bones traveling around the world instead of DK, Mario, and Pauline.
I can't wait to visit my Uncle Julius at his zoo home. Maybe he knows where my Papa Donkey Kong is.
Oh, and Junior's able to talk even though his father could only speak about as well as a Pokemon.
Nice catch, guys. Crook exhibit. I've been monkeying around and I think I got the hang of it. Whoa! Well, I guess I flunked the ape test.
Oh, you're the top ape with me, Bones. Except for Papa Donkey Kong, of course.
Your eyes glazed over from the insanity yet? Well, that was just the first season. You want to see how nuttier it will get? Stay tuned after this.
Quest Seekers The Wormstone, putting a new spin on the fantasy adventure genre, now available at Amazon.com.
For the second season, Frogger and Pitfall were dropped from the rotation and replaced with two new series of shorts, including
Joey Kangaroo. Supercade in the zoo.
Kangaroo Kangaroo was one of the many rip-offs of Donkey Kong that came out in the wake of that game's popularity. In this case, creating a game that was about a mother kangaroo trying to rescue her baby from a pack of rogue monkeys. The cartoon featured the main character Katie Kangaroo and her son Joey living in the zoo and constantly having to help the zookeeper stop the troublemaking antics of the monkeys.
Looks like the monkeys are at it again. They'll never learn. Now!
Thanks for breaking my fall, fellas.
Well, I guess if they ever try to adapt this thing into a movie, they've got Justin Bieber easy to cast as one of the monkeys.
Yay, Mom!
Clean him up, Mrs. K.
He won't get us up here. I won't. But these barrels
Way to go, Mrs. K.
Kangaroo is likely another one of the cartoons that has largely been forgotten, evidenced by how few episodes can be found. The other cartoon that came in the second season, though...
I'll get you yet, Faces!
Yes, if Donkey Kong isn't the most well-known of the Supercade shorts, this one would definitely be. For those not aware, Space Ace was one of the very first full-motion arcade games to be released, and one of 2 games achieving notoriety for the animation being designed by the legendary Don Bluth. And yes, I am aware that the other game, Dragon's Lair, got its own separate animated series, but let's focus on the task at hand. By having actual animated cutscenes, Space Ace was one of the first video games to have a complete storyline and ultimate objective. This story takes place in the future and revolves around 2 Space Command cadets, Space Ace Dexter and Officer Kimberly, whose mission is to protect the Earth from this monstrosity named Borf, who wants to conquer everything by turning people into babies with his Infanto Ray. Problem is, the Ray doesn't function perfectly on humans, as proved when Space Ace got hit with the Ray at some point before the series started, and thus he keeps changing back and forth between his grown-up self and a 10-year-old 90-pound weakling. And one of the running bits is Kimberly having to pass off infantilized Dexter as her little brother to Space Commander Vaughn out of the fear that he'll be stripped of his post if he's ever discovered. So apparently Vaughn doesn't even know Space Ace's real name is the same as Kimmy's brother, let alone how Dexter and Ace are always in the same place, yet never seen together.
Officer Kimberly, how many times must I tell you to keep your little brother out of Space Command headquarters? And where is Space Ace?
Heck, there was at least one episode where Ace changes in the middle of an entire stadium full of people and no one notices, let alone Vaughn. Yeah, Vaughn is about the dumbest commander of a military post since Colonel Clink, with perception worse than Lois Lane. How has Borf not conquered the whole galaxy with him running Space Command? Apparently, Ace and Kimberly are the greatest duo of soldiers in the history of ever. Heck, I gotta give the show credit for making Kimberly one of the first competent female co-leads in any action series that I've seen. She actually comes off as more active in the cartoon series than she was in the game, at least in the walkthroughs of the game that I've seen, since I've never played the game, so take that for what it's worth.
You don't really need those stairs, Borf.
No!
Here's a couple of missiles with both your names on them.
Sometimes she comes off as more capable than Space Ace, especially when he reverts to Kid Dexter and she has to take over.
Why, you big bully, we'll show you.
I'm in charge now, Dexter, and I say settle down.
Of course, when he's full grown, he's still a braggart whose boasting Kimmy has to take with a grain of salt.
Space Ace, come in. It's getting real serious here.
And things aren't serious here? I'm about to win the gold medal for Earth, Kim.
Actually, their relationship seems kind of familiar.
Nice job, hero.
Hey, excuse me, princess.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if this was the inspiration for the Super Show writers. You're lighting the torches again, aren't you? All that having been said, the stories are still pretty goofy, even if they still try to keep them within the confines of a space adventure, like when Borf infantilizes his foot soldiers, called Groots, and have them invade Earth as pets. And yeah, the Groots are pretty much evil space cats. I expected the guys to go ape on that, but fortunately, they've been more mellow since discovering their kind is actually well represented on the web. The kid's got talent! There were even episodes where Kimberly and Borf get hit with the Infanto Ray, but naturally the plot finds ways for them to fully be cured of its effects, but not Dexter.
Quick, let me have it. I'll be cured.
Oh, yes, that's right. The age ray only works once, and then you might as well, throw it out, yeah. I guess the age ray works twice, at the very most.
Still, neither Space Ace or the Kangaroo cartoons were enough for the entire series to get a third season, and it faded away into obscurity. And obviously, due to licensing issues involving all the games it included, distribution since has been sparse at best. The Space Ace cartoons were aired on Boomerang at some point, and edited versions of the Q*bert cartoons were legally available on YouTube, but that's about it, with any type of home video release pretty much being no chance. Which means Saturday Supercade has become one of the most lost cartoon shows to come out of any time. Which is too bad, because this thing is every bit of stupid, crazy awesomeness! Oh, it's not a great series by any means, but you just gotta give props to the creative teams for at least trying to create story scenarios for games that had virtually no such stories to tell themselves. And compared to the failures of Battletoads and Bubsy that have come out since, they did about as good a job as anyone could have hoped. There were actually a lot of names fans of animation would recognize today that worked on this thing. Paul Dini was one of the writers. This was one of many 80s cartoons that Haim Saban and Shuki Levy composed the music for, and the voice talent included the likes of Nancy Cartwright, Frank Welker, Peter Cullen, and Kenneth Mars. Heck, they even landed Soupy Sales to voice Donkey Kong. It's ludicrous in its execution. It almost makes you think it was a desperate effort to rescue the video game industry from the crash of 1983, and it's just one big cluster crap of insane fun. And it just reminds me of how stupidly enjoyable this medium can be, and why I dedicated myself to ferreting out and exposing the bad stuff. And I don't care what comes around to try and stop me on that. Militia, Professor Stupidiot, Ace Salary, Maker Studios, and Blip, they can all kiss my fat white ass, because this show isn't going anywhere! Because damn it, the world needs people like us. We may look like obsessive nerds with a sense of entitlement, but we are the guardians of what passes for worthwhile entertainment. And just because it isn't necessarily important in a grand scheme doesn't mean it shouldn't still be good. We rate movies, video games, TV shows based on how we like them, not just because we're getting kickbacks or blowjobs from the creators. You may not agree with what we say, but at least you know that it's honest. People need internet critics because we tell it like we see it. We're protecting your interests, and we are continuing to fight for fans like you. And that's why I'm gonna do everything in my power to keep TV trash going. Whatever garbage gets thrown my way, I'm gonna stare it right in the face and take it on no matter what it is. Next time, the U.S. adaptation of Kepling. Call Sith and tell her to have the color belt on standby!